Discharge podcast presented by Blue Wire Network. So happy to be joined today by Tyler and Alex. I know I gotta remember to say that more often because it's been a big deal for us. But Tyler and Alex are here. Alex, how you doing today, man?
Good. Shout out to Blue Wire. It just hit our account, so that's fun.
It is fun, and those 76ers, man, they got the 1 seed. So how you feeling?
Relieved, and I think all 5 of them are sitting out today. So victory cigar game. But
there you go. Getting healthy towards the playoffs. Tyler, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing just fine. I'm not a huge Lakers fan, but I know that LeBron's going to make it and do some damage for sure. And I'm sure the Sixers are totally not going to blow it, Alex.
Get past the play-in round. How about that, Lakers fans? Get past the
play-in. I mean, the Lakers did win the championship last year, so I think.
Yeah, but it was a bubble championship. I mean, was it really a thing? I don't know.
I personally think it was a little more difficult than usual, personally, but it is what it is. All right, so we've got a fun show planned for you guys today. We've got a couple more interviews with Mitch Sherman, who covers the University of Nebraska for 247 Sports, and then Steven Wiseman, who covers Duke and North Carolina for a local program there. So happy to have those two on here. The videos, as always, are going to be separate, and the audio version is going to be happening right now. All right, so thanks again to Mitch and Steven. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying those interviews. We've got a couple more lined up with you, specifically the Georgia one. I think is the last one that we've got to be able to send out. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying those, learning a little bit about these prospects. We were able to get some kind of insight yesterday or 2 days ago as well because of the rookie mini camp, which apparently was only 1 day of media availability, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Other than that, we're going to talk today about Brandon Staley's Coach of the Year campaign, as well as taking a look at the 2021 AFC West schedule. So we'll run down the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Broncos schedules and kind of talk about our observations there. So we're going to start with Brandon Staley's Coach of the Year odds. Been some crazy movement there. He initially opened as tied for 8th, according to DraftKings, and now he is tied for 1st. So some insane movement over the last few, 72 hours or so as people have been making their bets. So Alex, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts as to Brandon Staley's, initial campaign? Like, do you think he has a good chance of winning that award? And what do you make of the specific movement going from tied for 8th to tied for 1st in such a short span of time?
I mean, as far as the movement, like that can just be, people betting money and then people go up and down. So I don't know if anything serious happened other than rookie mini camp and Rashawn Slater putting on a gray jersey. Is that what happened in the last few days to cause the movement? I don't know. But you look at his rookie of the year odds, and to me, or not rookie of the year, coach of the year odds, there's really 2 kinds of coaches that have won the award over the last 10 years. It's been the coaches that have had, a dominant season for their teams. And then there's been the coaches that, kind of win the most improved team award. The most recent one obviously was Stefanski, but you have Matt Nagy 2018, you have Sean McVay 2017, Jim Harbaugh 2011. A lot of those first-year head coaches kind of get that praise. And then, that's sort of the award is the most improved team. And you look at the first-year coaches this year, it's Staley, Arthur Smith, and Robert Saleh, who are the guys that I think have a realistic chance to kind of be that most improved team. And to me, Staley's walking into the best offensive and defensive kind of complete team situation. I think Arthur Smith is going to have a great offense with Atlanta. Based on the fact they just drafted a monster in Kyle Pitts. But defense in Atlanta needs a lot more work than the Chargers does, and the Jets need a whole lot more work, and they also have a quarterback to develop. So that's kind of the situation there. I think Arthur Smith was like plus 1,800 when I looked at it, and Robert Saleh was plus 2,000. So he easily, going into the season at least, is the best of that, most improved new coach crop. And 5 out of the last 10 winners have been that. So, it's, pretty kind of 50-50 unless, you have a John Harbaugh 2019 season where the Ravens go 14-2, Lamar wins MVP. Also similar season, 15-1, Ron Rivera, Cam wins MVP. So those are really the 2 kind of coaching archetypes that you look at. And to me, Staley, out of the new coaches, that can be the most improved team. I mean, he's pretty out in front of the pack.
Yeah, the Chargers have not had a coach win since 2004 with Marty Schottenheimer. I think we all could have seen Lynn winning it, but Matt Nagy's season jump was insane. And it is weird to think that at some point Anthony Lynn legitimately could have won Coach of the Year. And very recently, the challenge here, and I don't know how voting, takes this into account, but the challenge here is that the last 5 guys who have won head coach of the year, they've made significant jumps where, Jason Garrett makes a 9-game jump, McVay 7 games, Nagy 7 games, Harbaugh only 4, and Stefanski made a 5-game jump. The Chargers went 7-9, so to make that significant jump, like he'd probably have to win 12 games, and none of us picked them to win 12 games. So like if they win, so we guess 10-7, 11-6, is that enough to be considered? I don't know. Like, is that also enough to be better than the Chiefs in your division? I don't know. So that's pretty tough. So like, I would actually, do I think he can win it? Sure, of course I think he can win it. He's going to a pretty good team, and I think he's a good coach. But I would actually kind of put my money on the Falcons and Arthur Smith. Honestly, like, I know that I think the Chargers are going to be a better team, but they can make that jump. And the Falcons, if they go from like 4 wins to 9 wins, looking at their schedule, it's not that difficult. If they beat Philly, the Giants, the Jets, Carolina, Jacksonville, Detroit, hopefully beat New Orleans once, and they have 2 tougher games with Dallas and San Francisco. Like, they have Julio, Ridley, Gage, Pitts. They drafted Richie Grant, Drew Dahlman, Jalen Mayfield to play guard, signed Cordarrelle Patterson. So, like, I do think they could make that jump, and I think that is, like, if I was betting money, I'd probably put it on Arthur Smith. Dark horse, maybe Ron Rivera, if that team does really well in the division, and because he's won it twice before. So I do think Staley, has a good shot at it, but would I bet on him being like the first, like ranked for first for best odds? I don't know.
Yeah, those odds are a little tough for me because I think, we talked in the interview process while that whole thing was going on that the Chargers were the best situation. They were the closest teams to contending. And so could it happen? For sure. I think the Chargers, are in a good situation where if they're able to stay healthy, kind of ride out the storm of those first 6 weeks, then Brandon Staley could be in, a really good spot there. If he was tied for 8th and I were a betting man, I would 100% have taken that bet. Yeah. At tied for first, I'm not taking that bet. Like, I think, if you're talking purely a good value bet, then I don't think Brandon Staley is that anymore. So I think Arthur Smith would be a good bet. And, I'm glad that you pointed out Ron Rivera. I think Sean Payton is a good one as well because kind of moving on from Drew Brees, and if he's able to, kind of revive Jameis Winston's career and they're able to, win 12, 13 games, then, I could see Sean Payton getting that. I think Bill Belichick has a legitimate case as well, potentially depending on what their quarterback situation is. But I do think that Brandon Staley has a good shot to win it. And like Tyler was saying, it kind of does depend on that, really kind of that first year leap. But it's fun to see and it's fun to talk about for sure.
The first year leap thing is interesting because, like, I guess that comes down to the perception of, were the Chargers really a 7-win team last year, right? Like, I mean, we do talk about how they kind of won in the garbage time portion of their season, right? I mean, wins are wins, but it's like, I don't know if the perception was that they were that. Another weird coach of the year nomination might be, God, I hate saying this, Urban Meyer. I hate everything that man does. I'm not.
Wait, hold on. The coach that's talking about the running back that he just took in the first round playing wide receiver, the coach that you hate with a burning passion, you're going to advocate for coach of the year right now?
No. Well, okay. So I think he's going to be terrible and flop, but it's like, as Tyler was saying, right? We talk about how, some, Jags were 1-15 last year. Right, there is nowhere to go but up from them, and if you have Lawrence replacing Gardner Minshew or Jake Luton, whatever they were running out there last year, like, I do think there is something to that. And if they go from 1-15 to 6-10 off the back of, say, a Lawrence Rookie of the Year campaign, like, I do think there is something there. But no, I would not ultimately bet on Urban Meyer winning Coach of the Year. I think the 3 rookie coaches that I've kind of narrowed it down to as like value that you can get that's good is Staley. Although I guess he's a little high now for value, but also, as we've been talking about, Arthur Smith and Robert Saleh. I think if Robert Saleh does turn it around and the Jets do have the LaFleur brother as their offensive coordinator, if it does look a lot cleaner this year, it could also be them as kind of a most improved team candidate.
Yeah. Last thing I want to point out, or we can keep talking, I don't know, but the last thing I want to point out is that John Gruden and David Culley for the Texans have the same odds, which are the worst odds in the NFL. And it's amazing that John Gruden and like the worst franchise with the Texans was just some random coach, honestly. They have the same odds. That's pretty sad.
It is pretty sad. And you know, I mentioned this article that I wrote for LAFB, kind of going back through the last 10 years of these first year head coaches. And the only pattern that I really focused on was like the teams that made the playoffs. But the second pattern in every single coaching cycle is that there is almost always one immediate flame out. One coach in this cycle is going to get fired by the end of the 2022 season. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be David Culley with the Texans because that situation is so terrible. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. But then again, maybe he gets the number one pick next year. That guy kind of turns into a franchise savior. We'll have to see how that one pans out. But the last coach of the year candidate that I kind of wanted to bring up, and this kind of leads into our next conversation, is Brian Flores for the Miami Dolphins. Because I think everybody's kind of looking at the Buffalo Bills as the favorite, Patriots kind of regaining their form, getting back to, like potentially challenging for the division crown, a playoff spot. But the Miami Dolphins did win 10 games last year. They had subpar quarterback play at best between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua. And they have the fourth easiest schedule this year, according to Warren Sharp. So it stands to reason that everybody's kind of looking at the Buffalo Bills as like, they're going to be the next team to kind of, run the AFC East. But the Dolphins have an easier schedule. They've made some improvements. They get Jalen Waddle and they get Will Fuller to give Tua some weapons. So I could see Brian Flores being a sneaky candidate there as well.
Yeah, and I think the other one is this the guy? I haven't looked at the on-site that you looked at, but is Shanahan the one he's tied for one with?
Yeah, it was Shanahan,
Shanahan and Stefanski.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean Shanahan makes a lot of sense just because that's 6-10 last year. Obviously, all of the injuries. They have a new quarterback, and Jimmy G, and they're getting a lot of their guys like Nick Bosa back. And I think they have the easiest schedule. Is that they had the number one easiest schedule. So to me, that's also, a really hot spot to bet too.
Flores only has one job, but if Tua doesn't develop, he's not winning the award unless for some reason the defense guides them to 13-4. Still hate these numbers, but I like their draft. Waddle, Eichenberg, Hunter Long. That's some pretty good offensive talent there to go along with Will Fuller and the defense, which was a lot better last year. So yeah, I could see it. The odds are a little high. He was at one point a favorite to win it like mid-season last year, right? So yeah, doesn't surprise me, I guess. We'll see.
Yeah, the three finalists last year were Flores, Stefanski, and Ron Rivera. I think Ron Rivera was obviously a little bit of a sentimental pick because of going through cancer and because of Alex Smith's situation, all that stuff. But I think Flores could do that as well. And like Bruce Arians, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are able to, really build out this resume, so to speak, I think Bruce Arians could make a lot of sense there as well. All right, so we mentioned this a couple times. We're going to talk about this overall, the schedule for this upcoming season, at least according to Warren Sharp, who does some great work in the analytical field. So he compiled this ranking of the 2021 NFL strength of schedule based on the forecasted win total. So a lot of strength of schedule tweets and files that you'll see right now are based off of who the teams played last year and how those teams played, or who the teams that they're playing this year fared last season based off of their record. But I like this one because it does forecast a little bit more based off of the record projection. So the Chargers sit at 19th on this, 19th easiest, or 12th hardest, if you want to look at it that way, according to Warren Sharp. And we mentioned the Niners as the easiest. Number 2 on this schedule is the Denver Broncos. So we're going to start there with the Denver Broncos. We're going to run through their list, and we're kind of just going to have a similar conversation to what we did about the Chargers and kind of what jumps out at us. So running down the list, the Broncos open at New York, at Jacksonville, home against the Jets, home against the Ravens, at the Pittsburgh Steelers, home against the Raiders, at the Cleveland Browns, home against Washington, at Dallas, home against Philadelphia. They have the Week 11 bye, and then home against the Chargers, at the Kansas City Chiefs, home against the Lions, home against the Bengals, at the Raiders, at the Chargers, and then they wrap up the season hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. So Tyler, what are your initial thoughts looking at this Denver Broncos schedule?
I tried to go through and give everyone a win-loss prediction kind of based off and jumping off from our Chargers predictions. And although they do start the season pretty nice with the Giants, Jags, and Jets, it does get pretty tough for them. And it is still the AFC West. And, unfortunately, the Denver Broncos, if the Chargers are going to win games and beat the Chiefs or beat the Steelers or the Ravens or whatever, even if I predict them to lose some of those games, they have the quarterback to take that step. So it's like, okay, they could flip the script on anything that I say here, win or loss. Broncos, I just feel like it's like, do you have the quarterback? No, then you're going to lose. Like, I think their defense might be okay, but we'll see how they do. I have them at 7-10 right now. I don't have them beating the Chiefs once. I have them splitting with the Raiders and splitting with the Chargers. And like, I don't know. I just don't see a whole lot for them. There's no, like, okay, if they play Dallas, like, I just don't think they have the firepower to keep up, where the Chargers have the firepower and a defense. I think, Washington football team, I just flipped, my loss to a win for the Chargers in that game. Can the Broncos overcome that Washington football team defense? I don't really think so. So I have them at 7-10. I don't want to say it's easy to predict their schedule, but it just seems like until they have a quarterback, they're either winning or they're losing. And there's not a whole lot of close ones here, except for maybe the game against the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an easier schedule, but like Tyler said, it's like if you don't have the quarterback, then I don't know what the team's gonna be. I will say, just like, they do have the Jets, which is obviously easier than what the Chargers have. Obviously, they get the Lions, which I think is probably more enviable than having the Vikings on your schedule.
Yeah.
But to me, their schedule was a bit more balanced. Like, there wasn't like any section with a bunch of hard opponents, sort of like the Chargers had at the beginning, or we'll get to the Raiders, like they have in the last 8 weeks of the season. But yeah, I haven't come up with a number prediction for them, but to me, I think that's sort of a 7-10, 8-9 team.
I think the Denver Broncos are clearly, with the Chargers in the sense that they're probably either going to be second or third. And I think this schedule opens up really nice for them. I mean, you get the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets. And so, like, kind of worst case scenarios there is that you're, heading into week 4 against the Ravens and you're probably 2-1. But, then it could definitely snowball for them, because you got the Ravens who will give them problems. You'll get the Steelers who will give them problems. The Raiders, I mean, that's a divisional game, so you kind of never know there. Then you get the Browns and Washington. So their opening schedule isn't crazy, but then, you look at weeks 4 through 8, and that's 4 really, really good defenses that could certainly give their offense problems, especially with Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater or whoever is playing quarterback there. So after the Washington game, it's not super difficult. Like, I think playing at Dallas is a tough spot for them. Like Tyler was saying, I mean, they get the Eagles at home, so that should be, a win. Then they get the Lions and the Bengals at home, so both of those two should be wins. So, I mean, if they're able to, split with the Chargers and split with the Raiders, I think they could be looking at like an 8-9 kind of season, or a 9-8 kind of season. God, I hate that so much. But I do think that the Broncos improved at enough spots where I could see them definitely improving on their win-loss total. It's just the quarterback. Like, if Drew Lock can even be average for them, or Teddy Bridgewater, I could see them getting up to 10-7. But like Tyler was saying, I just don't like, are you going to go into Dallas feeling comfortable with Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock versus Dak? And same kind of thing with the Chiefs and with all these other teams. So they have a really good roster outside of the quarterback, and their schedule is easy. So it certainly could make a lot of sense to see them take that, nice 4-game, 5-game win streak leap. But I just don't know if I feel comfortable to say that they do that.
We say all this, but Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock did beat us last year. So that sucks.
That is true.
That's
That is
funny.
true.
We did give them the split, so there we go.
There we go. All right, let's move on to the Chiefs, who happen to fall right next to the Chargers at 20th. So that would be the 12th most difficult schedule according to Warren Sharp. And we'll run down this now. So they obviously open against the Browns. That'll be a super fun game. Just as a casual fan, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Then they play at Baltimore, host the Chargers, at the Eagles, host the Bills, at Washington, at Tennessee, host the Giants, host the Packers, at the Raiders, host the Cowboys. They have a bye week in week 12. And then they host Denver, host the Raiders, at the Chargers, host the Steelers, at Cincinnati, and then they finish at the Denver Broncos. So, Alex, we'll start with you on this one. What jumps out to you about the Chiefs' schedule?
I mean, obviously that Packers game is probably the most interesting thing, because is it going to be Rodgers versus Mahomes, or is it going to be Jordan Love versus Mahomes? Granted, I don't know if it makes a huge difference in terms of their final record prediction, because of course you do have, you're either going to be playing Rodgers once or you'll be playing him 2 times, right? So if he's in Denver, so we'll see about that. But I don't think it's too hard of a schedule. Like we said, it's kind of similar to the Chargers in a lot of ways, apart from having the number 1 game against the Bills, and they get the Titans. But other than that, it's not too bad. I think it's a manageable schedule, and the reality is they're a 12-5 team, 13-4 kind of team, especially with their rebuilt offensive line. I don't think they should have too many problems.
I genuinely hate doing this record prediction for the Chiefs because I don't like their roster. Like their defense isn't that good, and who knows how this offensive line is going to be. But I have them at 14-3 because that's stupid quarterback and their coach. So I mean, it's gonna come. A couple games will be close for sure. Like they have to play the Bills, they have to play the Titans, so that could be close in the AFC. That Packers one is big. The Packers did win last time they played 31-24, and I believe they do have to go to Lambeau that game, so that could be a very significant game. And of course, oh wait, did I give them a loss to the Chargers? Oh God, and I'm just way too optimistic these days. I don't know why I wrote a loss to the Chargers. Whatever. I mean, I think it can happen. Like if it's going to be any game, it'll be that one. But otherwise, like their schedule is pretty, like they can just win most of these games. And I really hate to say it, but they could have nothing but practice squad guys. And if that quarterback is out there, they're winning 12 games. It's ridiculous, but they're a good That's a good quarterback, man.
It is. So they actually host the Packers. I don't know if that changes your prediction at all, but they do host the Packers.
Nah.
Okay.
Lose. Gosh dang it.
I mean, you're right though, because I mean everybody kind of looks at the Super Bowl final score and it's like, wow, the Buccaneers really took it to the Chiefs, and like the score shows that. But I mean, Patrick Mahomes hit Tyreek Hill right in the face in the end zone, and I think he had Travis Kelce who had a drop like at the 1 yard line or something like that. And so the reality is that Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks have this conversation of like which quarterbacks are trucks and which are trailers, meaning who can carry a team and who needs to be carried. Patrick Mahomes is the epitome of the truck. Like whatever you think the best truck on the market is, that's Patrick Mahomes. And so he absolutely is going to carry this team. I will say their opening schedule is a little difficult. I mean, you get the Browns, Ravens, Chargers, Bills, Washington, Tennessee in the first 7 weeks. That's not a cakewalk. And so maybe they can get kind of out to a slow start. If they, ended up being like 1-2 out of the gate, it wouldn't surprise me necessarily, because I think the Browns are really good and the Ravens are really good. And the Chargers obviously have Justin Herbert, so we'll have to see how that one pans out. But that after the bye week, man, like it could not be any easier for this team. You get the Broncos, Raiders, Chargers, Steelers, and then you get the Bengals and the Broncos again. So you get such a nice schedule for them. I'm looking at that game at Denver, assuming that they're going to be resting starters again with the one scene wrapped up. Like that's just the reality of the situation, I think.
So is Patrick Mahomes like a Ford F-150, Colin Cowherd?
I mean, if that's the best truck in your opinion, then yeah, I guess so. I think Anthony Lynn would probably call him an F-250. I don't know. All right, guys, any thoughts about the Chiefs before we move on to the Raiders one? Good, Tyler?
I own a Chevrolet Volt, so I couldn't tell you about trucks.
How Southern California of you, Tyler. All right, let's move on to the Raiders here. Just in the most comical fashion, they have the most difficult schedule according to Warren Sharp, which we all love, right? The way that the Chargers release the schedules and the family trust respect thing, such a wonderful play on words. I'm so glad the social media team did that. So let's run down the Raiders schedule, obviously opening up with the Ravens, at the Steelers, home against the Dolphins, at the Chargers, home against the Bears, at Denver, home against the Eagles. They have a week 8 bye. And then at the Giants, home against the Chiefs, home against the Bengals, at the Dallas Cowboys, home against Washington, at Kansas City, at Cleveland, home against Denver, at Indianapolis, and then they close the season hosting the Chargers in the season finale. Wait, is that right? Yeah, that's the Raiders. Okay. I was confused for a second.
Yeah.
So Tyler, what jumps out to you about the Raiders schedule? Your dad's favorite team, man. Like, what can your dad look forward to looking at the schedule?
He can look forward to the fact that my mom's one of the best therapists in Orange County, because this is going to be a brutal schedule. And I have them at 3-14, and maybe that's generous. I have them, no offense, Alex, I have them beating the Eagles, maybe splitting the Broncos, and then beating the Bengals. Otherwise, this is awful. This is an awful schedule for the Raiders, who are, I don't want to say they're in a transition year, but having to put these O-line pieces in, new defensive coordinator, new secondary pieces in, and have to play some of these teams. I mean, it's already tough enough to be in the AFC West and be probably the worst team in the AFC West, even though they finished ahead of the Broncos and Chargers last season. But the fact that they have to go and play, unfortunately, they did finish as a second place team. So they have to play the Colts and they have to play the Bears. Now the Chargers have to play the Vikings. But I don't know. It's either way. That's a tough one. They have to play the Dolphins. I mean, the Chargers are playing New England. So the schedule is just really, really tough. I have them at 0-6 to start. And then, it's just not good anywhere. It's going to be really miserable. There's a reason that John Gruden has the worst coaching odds to win Coach of the Year. And part of that is this schedule is freaking awful.
Yeah, you said 0-6, and it's like, I was trying to kind of figure out where's their first win, and it's like the Ravens primetime. It's like, I don't think they're beating the Ravens. Steelers next week, probably not. Dolphins, maybe, but I don't think so. And then you have the Bears. Bears and Broncos could probably be two toss-up games for them, but ultimately it's just really tough. And then you go into sort of what their primetime games are. You do have the obviously the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, which is really tough. Then you get obviously the Colts in the back half of the season, Chiefs twice, the Browns. I mean, they have a stretch that is effectively the Chiefs, then the Bengals, then Cowboys, Washington football team, Chiefs, Browns, Broncos, Colts. Like, to me, that we were going over the schedule, I think, when it came out, and I was like, the Raiders could have like a decent start. And then I looked at the schedule again, and I was like, I don't think they will, right? And then it's like, I think I said that they could be like a 6-3 to 6-10 team eventually, and that's what the back half of the season is. But I looked at the first half again, and I'm like, I don't think they're going to be 6-3. They could be 3-6 in that first half, and then have to deal with the tough part of the second half. So to me, I think they do project as potentially fourth place in the AFC West, and I don't know if there's really a way out of it for them, because I don't think they dramatically improved their roster this offseason. So to me, I think this schedule is really a fourth place in the AFC West type schedule for them.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of said this when we were talking about the Chargers playing them. Outside of Darren Waller and maybe Trayvon Merrick, depending on how people feel about him, I don't know who their long-term building blocks are. I think Yannick Ngakoue is better than Cleveland Farrell for sure. I don't look at Ngakoue as a long-term building block kind of player. I think he's a nice role player. And that's what the Raiders roster is. I mean, you have Colton Miller, who they signed to a massive contract. I don't look at him as a building block kind of player. I look at him as a nice role player. And then, I know Trent Brown was kind of a headache for them, but he at least is an elite talent at his position. Now you're starting Denzel Good at right tackle or Alex Leatherwood, players who I like. But again, they're role players. They're not, high ceiling talent kind of players. And so it's tough for me to look at this roster and be like confident in the fact that they could win games. And so I look at this schedule and I think you have a winnable stretch of Broncos, Eagles, Giants. That's like about it in terms of like easy. And you guys hit on the opening schedule. Could they beat the Chargers? Sure, it's a divisional game. Maybe Monday Night Football. That's always tough for home teams. But I don't know. I mean, if Justin Fields is playing, I don't think that they will beat the Bears. Maybe if Andy Dalton is, I guess. But then down the stretch, it could not be tougher for a team, like Alex was saying. So I'm not going to go as far as saying 3-14 like Tyler does, but I think 5-12, 6-10, or 6-11. God, I hate that. But I think this team is definitely tracking towards being the last place team. I will say, like, the one caveat here is, outside of injury, obviously, if Drew Lock somehow impresses enough to win the job, and then comes out like a dumpster fire, then I think that could put the Broncos in last place. But other than that, it looks like the Raiders are going to be in last place this year.
I will say, you guys have been talking about the Eagles and the fact that they're going to lose all 4 games in the AFC West. And I'm kind of at the point right now where I can't even disagree.
Oh, man.
I mean, like,
yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Tyler.
No, just saying sorry.
Oh, but I mean, like, we had that conversation about first-year head coaches, and listen, the Eagles have the advantage of playing in the worst division in the league. So, like, who knows? Maybe Jalen Hurts gets hot at a certain stretch of the year, and maybe the Eagles can get to 8-9 and win the division. And I don't think that's out of the question, unfortunately.
I sold them. And speaking of Warren Sharp talked about how the Eagles got just brutally, wrecked on this schedule. They're the only team that has to play 4 games in 17 days, which is just kind of ridiculous. Oh. And coming out of that stretch where I think they do play 4 games in 17 days, they have to then play the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. So it's just a wreck of a schedule. So like when I first saw the schedule, I'm like, all right, this could be 7-10. And I was, kind of being optimistic. I'm like, all right, I'm feeling 5-12 now.
That is brutal.
Sorry.
Man. That is not fun.
Alex.
So
Jalen, take the wheel.
Jalen, take the wheel. Yeah. So, all right, guys, any other thoughts on the AFC West schedules before we wrap up today's show?
Well, if the Raiders decide to bomb, then Derek Carr has a 0 dead cap next season, and they could be in place for a quarterback to give John Gruden another 4 years.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks, I mean, we keep kind of mentioning him on the show briefly, but I reserve the right to change my predictions if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Raiders or Broncos.
100%.
Yes.
100%. The Raiders, I don't think is going to happen. I don't think the Raiders have. I mean, I guess you could throw like 4 first-round picks at them, but yeah, that's a tough one. The Broncos, we'll see.
It's weird to me that out of all the Raiders, and we were talking about like the pieces that they've been kind of loyal to and the building blocks they've been getting, like I really thought Derek Carr was kind of going to be out like the 2nd year of John Gruden, and he somehow held on to like the 4th year. And I'm kind of surprised by that. Part of that is the contract, but it's like, if you're paying John Gruden $10 million a year, I mean, you could have probably eaten that a while ago. So yeah. I don't know. It's weird to me that they've stuck with him all this time. I mean, he did play well last year, relatively speaking. But yeah, I think that quarterback change is coming relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one. I like Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is fine. I think Chargers fans, talk about him as like a bottom 5 quarterback when that's just really not the case. But he's not a building block quarterback. He's fine. So that's just another one there. All right. So that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, make sure and leave us a rating or review, whether that's on YouTube or on Apple or Spotify or wherever. And make sure and go check out those interviews. And we will see you guys next time.